Welcome everyone. Let us take a moment to arrive, for this session. Those who joined here at Tushita to arrive in this place, to settle down on the cushion. And those who are joining from home, to arrive in front of your device, to leave our worries outside, just to come for this session. What we can do is take 3 deep breaths, inhaling and exhaling deeply so that the stomach rises and falls. Every time we inhale, trying to refresh our attention. Every time we exhale, trying to relax. Now, before we start contemplating the law of karma, we'll also do a 5 minutes placement meditation. So I'll quickly remind you how to do that, just in case new people are joining online. So the first thing we need to look at is our body posture. Ideally sitting on the floor. If at home you're sitting on the chair, it's also perfectly fine. Just make sure you're not leaning against the support of the chair, not leaning forward either. If possible, both feet flat on the floor then if you're on a chair. If the floor is too low for you, you can place a cushion or something so that your feet, are flat. If you're sitting on a cushion on the floor, the best would be to sit in a full lotus posture. That means both feet on top of the opposite leg. That might be a little bit challenging, so make sure you're not pushing yourself, you're not forcing your body. Make sure you're sitting comfortably. The hands, we place them traditionally in the concentration mudra, meaning the right hand is on top of the left, the 2 thumbs are slightly touching, and this mudra rests in our lap, allowing some space between the arms and the body. Hello, welcome. The back is straight, the body is upright. This is actually the most important of these instructions for the body. If you can sit on the floor, that's the best, but if you prefer to sit on a chair, it's also okay. So we're just starting with a short placement meditation, and at the moment I'm going through the different points of the body posture, how to sit for a conducive meditation. So the most important is for the body to be upright, for the back to be straight. You can imagine there is like a string pulling from the crown of your head, keeping your body upright. Now, even though the body is upright, it should not be stiff. The shoulders should be even and relaxed. And we should be able to easily turn from left to right like this. The neck is aligned in the continuation of the spine, so you can very gently tilt the head forward, not too much, just in the continuation of the spine. If we tilt the head forward too much, then we have a tendency to fall asleep. If it's too high, then too many thoughts are coming. So we try to find a middle way, which is just to align the neck in the continuation of the spine. You can place your tongue just behind your upper teeth, towards the upper palate. This helps to reduce the production of saliva while you meditate. And finally, the last point when it comes to the body posture is the eyes. We don't meditate with the eyes completely closed. nor completely opened. We leave them slightly opened, almost closed, just to allow some light to enter. This helps to keep us alert. Also, learning to meditate with the eyes not completely closed can help us in the future, to differentiate between our different consciousnesses. Here we are not paying attention to what appears in front of our eyes. We don't meditate with our eye consciousness, we meditate with our mental consciousness. So this also helps in the future when you want to meditate with eyes open. You're able to do that. If you want to meditate with eyes closed, you're able to do that. But if you familiarize yourself with meditation only with eyes closed, then it becomes very difficult to meditate with eyes open. So leaving them slightly open has all these advantages that in the future you can choose. And allowing some light to enter also keeps us alert. So this meditation posture is known as the Buddha Vairocana meditation posture. And out of the 7 points we've been going through, the most important is for the body to be upright. Now that we looked at the body, let us look at what we are actually going to meditate on. So for this short placement meditation, what I would recommend, if this is new for you, of course, if you're familiar with shamatha, just take the meditation object you're familiar with. But if this is something new, relatively new for you, what I would suggest is to use the breathing sensation at the entrance of the nostrils as a meditation object. Try to place all your attention on the feeling, the sensation at the entrance of the nostrils as you breathe in and out. Perhaps you will observe as you breathe in that there is like a cooling sensation there. As you breathe out, it feels a little bit warmer. Try to observe only that, to place your entire attention on that sensation. Not the body part as such, the entrance of the nostrils, but the sensation, the feeling that is there. Now, when we meditate, we tend to get distracted. And the two main ways we get distracted is with mental excitement and mental laxity. What is mental excitement? Is basically our distracting thoughts. We are trying to sit here in this hall or at home in front of our device. And instead of focusing on our object of meditation, for example, the breathing sensation at the entrance of the nostrils, we start to think what I'm going to have for dinner tonight, or something that happened this afternoon that is still, still ruminating about. And therefore, we are not actually focused on our object of meditation. The second way we tend to get distracted is with mental laxity. We can also call it dullness or lethargy. Especially if you had a long day at work today, now sitting on a cushion with your eyes almost closed, might have a tendency to fall asleep. Our attention is not so strong and the mind starts to sink. We start daydreaming or falling asleep, and therefore we also lose our object of meditation. So now the good news is that there are two antidotes that we are, the goal of this meditation, we are training in using those two antidotes to counteract these distractions. So the two antidotes are called introspection and mindfulness. Introspection, you can imagine it as an agent in the background of your mind that is looking. What is my mind doing? Is it meditating? Is it focused on my object of meditation? Or is it distracted with thoughts or lethargy? And the moment introspection notices that the mind is actually not focused on the object of meditation, we make use of the second antidote, which is called mindfulness. The role of mindfulness is to bring the mind back, wherever it is, distracted with thoughts or with dullness. Mindfulness brings the mind back from there to the object of meditation. So here my suggestion, for those who just arrived, is we'll do a short placement meditation, and the object we are meditating on is the breathing sensation at the entrance of the nostrils. As you breathe in and out, you might feel the air passing by the entrance of the nostrils. Perhaps as you breathe in, you observe a cooling sensation. As you breathe out, this air is a little bit warmer. Try to place all your attention on that. Now we tend to get distracted with our thoughts or falling asleep if you had a long day, for example. So we make use of the two antidotes, introspection and mindfulness. I always use the analogy you can imagine if you have a pet dog at home and the dog runs away from home. Introspection will notice that the dog is gone. Mindfulness brings the dog back home, and you can also imagine tying him against a pillar at home so that he remains there. It's a little bit similar to what we are trying to do with our mind. So let us try that for about 5 minutes, using the two antidotes to remain on our object of meditation. we can gently come out of the meditation. Anybody was able to remain focused for the 5 minutes without distraction? 2-3 minutes, wow. That's a lot. You should sit here, I will sit there. I cannot do 2-3 minutes. Wow, that's amazing. Yeah, if we are able, for 5 minutes to remain concentrated without distraction, already we are expert meditator, I would say. Yeah, in the texts, it says that we achieve shamatha or calm abiding when we can remain concentrated for 4 hours without any distraction and with a total pliancy of the body and mind. Like 4 hours seems like half a second. It's very you don't feel that you're concentrated for 4 hours. Yeah, of course, in our modern world, that seems far away. There are so many distractions, gadgets, and so forth. So it takes a lot of training to go from where we are now to being able to use our mind to, instead of being used by our mind, to take control over our mind again. Yeah. So perhaps you felt 5 minutes is a bit short and you want to meditate more. So if this is the case, it's a very good sign that you might make the effort again, to sit and meditate. It is actually recommended when we begin with meditation to keep the sessions short. 2, 3, 4, 5 minutes, 10 minutes, maximum, usually we say 24 minutes, and then take a break. And if you want to do one more session, of course you can do. But if you sit, let's say, for 1 or 2 hours as a beginner, at the end you might feel completely exhausted, and then the next time you see your cushion, you don't want to sit again and go through that exhaustion again. So better to keep the sessions short and do more sessions than doing few long sessions. That's the advice that is usually given. Also, we've been familiarized with our distractions for a very long time, with mental excitement and dullness and so forth. So if we sit for 1 hour and we don't actually use the antidotes, then we are just strengthening our bad habits. On the other hand, if we sit for 2, 3, 4, 5 minutes and we make a strong commitment for this short duration, I will make an effort to use the antidotes, then gradually, we train ourselves in using them and progressing. Yeah. Can you take this mic so people online can also hear you?
What I found particularly helpful, not only while meditating, but also reading, because when you're reading, you're also distracted by, thoughts, immediate obligations. And what I found is that if you make a checklist before you meditate, probably about half an hour before, then that helps you sort of transfer those worries, say, for example, into a written format. And then you can lean into the world that you want to lean in while meditating or reading. And then when you want to come back, then, you refer to that writing or the list to be able to come back and not forget. Because I think one of the reasons why people are not able to fully concentrate is because they think that they'll forget something urgent that they want to do or they should be doing, but they're not able to do that. So I think that has been helpful for me personally.
Thank you for sharing. So usually when we do most of the sessions we do here at Tushita, we start with a short meditation like this, So this allows us to arrive here to a little bit, work on our concentration before we proceed to the activity of the day, which can be, pujas, prayers. And here today we will do an analytical meditation, and we'll also discuss among ourselves. So it's very good that you started the discussion. And today the topic we'll talk about and meditate on is the law of karma, the law of cause and effect. So this topic comes in a series of topics. We already had 4 such sessions. And this is in the context of what is called the Lamrim in Tibetan. Lamrim means the graduated path towards our awakening. So usually in this tradition, the tradition of the Dalai Lama, when we talk about the Lamrim, it refers to a text that was composed by the Great Lama Tsongkhapa. You have some images here, this statue. This is Lama Tsongkhapa, who was a great Tibetan scholar and saint. But actually, if you read his Lamrim, if you read his stages of the path, he praises another Lama who's called Lama Atisha, who actually, I think was born in present-day Bangladesh, perhaps, but then, studied in present-day Bihar at Nalanda University. And then he went on to Indonesia to learn more from another Lama who's called Lama Selingpa, and eventually went back to India, and eventually went to Tibet to, help disseminate the teachings there. Disseminate, is that the right word?
Yeah.
So, Lama Tsongkhapa doesn't take credit for this composition of the Lamrim Chenmo, the great treatises on the path to awakening. But he praises Lama Atisha, who composed, I think the text is called in English, a song to the path of awakening, something like that, which is much shorter, but is the basis on which Lama Tsongkhapa, the basis he used to compose his own more detailed texts. So the 4 sessions we had before the summer break, the first session we explored what is the mind, because when we come here is to actually, in our everyday lives, we are mostly looking outwards. When we come in such a center, such a temple or a monastery, we are trying to look inwards, trying to look at the mind. So the first thing we looked at is define what is the mind. And we explored that it is all our inner experiences, basically. And it's synonymous with like awareness, consciousness. That is, the mind is, strict definition is that which is clear and knowing. It knows objects, it reflects objects. Then the second session we explored the fortune of our present situation. In the Lamrim, in English, it is called the precious human life. The life that we have now, being born a human in such a country that is free. We are not in a country that is at war, so we have a lot of freedoms and endowments and richness that we can actually use to look inwards, to look at our mind. We have the possibility to do that. We live in a world where, the Buddha, 2,500 years ago, he came and he taught, his teachings are still there, very much there. In fact, with internet, it's so easy these days to, contemplate on the teachings of the Buddha. There are many people who are doing the same, so we have a community, and there are many people who are supporting that community. Not only that, we are interested to look at our mind. We are interested to, understand our situation, our condition. So all these characteristics enable for us to have this precious opportunity that we call the precious human life, where we can actually do something about our current situation. So we were exploring at the beginning how easily distracted we become. This is one example of the things we can do with this precious human life, is to take the control of our mind again, instead of being controlled by our mind. So in the Lamrim, in the different stages, we will explore exactly why and what we are trying to do when we look inwards, this inwards journey, this journey in the mind. The next topic we analyzed is the impermanence and death. So this precious opportunity that we have now to transform our minds in order to have more happiness, to reduce our suffering and so forth, to control our mind, to be less distracted, to be less angry, to have, less problems in our lives. This opportunity that we have now inevitably will come to an end. There is not, we don't know one human being, who has not passed away. If we look at the history of humanity, all the, the famous people in the history books, they're all no more, right? And not only that, but not only it is inevitable that we are going to pass away, but also we don't know when we will pass away. We have absolutely no clue. So this this meditation, this contemplation on impermanence and death, is to give us a sense of urgency, especially in this day and age, where there are so many things to do and distractions and movies to see and places to visit and this and that and parties and whatnot. So it is very easy not to do the inward journey, not to look at the mind and just be distracted and just enjoy life, or be distracted with, only making money, doing more and more jobs, and never looking inwards. So meditating on impermanence and death gives us that sense of urgency. Inevitably, I will die. I don't know when I will die. I could die today, for all I know. When I leave this place, when I go home, I might have a car crash. I have no idea, right? This is a possibility. So therefore, I should make the effort, to do some transformation of my mind as soon as possible, not wasting too much time. Then the fourth topic we looked at is refuge. And we explored refuge in the sense of, what we turn to, to make us happy, to make us feel good, to reduce our pain, our misery. So we explored together that we have all sorts of refuge. Some of us, we turn to food, some people turn to alcohol, some people to all sorts of things. This is our safe places. But then we explored the futility of these refuges and try to contemplate that actually, if we take refuge, for example, in such a method that the Buddha taught to transform our mind, in what we call the dharma in Sanskrit, then it's a more reliable refuge. Taking refuge in food or alcohol or parties or whatever, not only is it futile, but it's unreliable. It will not bring us a happiness that is lasting, and it will not always bring us happiness. Whereas if we do the work on transforming our mind, once we eliminate our disturbing emotions, for example, like anger, attachment, jealousy, pride, and so forth, once we completely uproot them, they will not come back. And then more peace of mind, more happiness. Today, the topic we'll explore is the law of karma, or the law of cause and effect. So, of course, it's something we are already familiar with, being in India, right? It's part of the culture. We talk about karma. So when it comes to karma, the Buddha made two very important points when it comes to the characteristics of karma is that any action we engage in, whether a positive action or a negative action, or in Buddhist terms we would rather say virtuous or non-virtuous action, inevitably that will give rise to a result that is similar. Like a non-virtuous action will inevitably give rise to an unpleasant experience. A virtuous action will inevitably give rise to a pleasant experience. Then also whatever we experience actually is the result of the karmas we have accumulated in the past. There is no way for us to experience something for which we didn't create the causes in the past. So we cannot expect to experience happiness if we don't create the causes for happiness. And when we have an experience of suffering, then it's pointless to blame outside. I don't know if Purbu, you know this saying in Tibetan that's, I think it's quite a famous saying that it's like when something bad happens to us, let's say somebody steals our phone from us. Instead of feeling angry at the person who stole the phone, we kind of say, I own my karma. This is kind of my responsibility. You know, if somebody steals your phone, so according to what the Buddha has taught 2,500 years ago, is that if I didn't create the causes for my phone to be stolen, this would never happen. So instead of being angry at the thief and perhaps generating more negative karma, you know, harming him or whatever, if we just recognize the fact that in the past we have accumulated the cause for that phone to be stolen, then not only we don't create new negative karma, but also that karma kind of expires. That cause that we have accumulated in the past now is not going to give rise to more suffering, that particular cause. So in general, we talk about 4 points when it comes to the characteristics of the law of karma. First, as we were saying, is that karma is definite. Non-virtuous action will give rise to unpleasant experience. Virtuous action will give rise to a pleasant experience. Then another characteristic is that karma increases. Even a small action can give rise to a big result. Just like a small seed, you know, can give rise to a huge tree with many fruits. Then, as we were saying, we don't make the experience of results for which we didn't create the cause, for which we didn't accumulate a karma that is related to that. So if we didn't create the causes for happiness, there will be no result of happiness. If we didn't in the past create the causes for misery, we will not experience misery. The last of these 4 points that we usually talk about when it comes to the characteristics of karma is that actions that we have engaged in do not disappear. Let's say I've hurt someone, that will inevitably give rise to a result. Or I have helped someone, that will give rise to a result. once an action has been created, it's like an imprint is left on our mind, on our mental continuum, on our consciousness. And these will give rise to a result in the future. And this result will come about when the conditions are ripe for that to come about. So this could, an action that I accumulate now, the result of that action could come in, I don't know, 50 lifetimes. Doesn't have to be in this life, doesn't have to be in the next life, could be, very far away in the future when all the conditions have come together. Whatever we experience now could be the result of something we have accumulated thousands or more years ago in a previous life. So there are exceptions to that. The good deeds that we do, the good actions, the positive actions, the virtuous actions that we engage in, if we properly dedicate them towards our full awakening, when we do pujas here, at the end, we always dedicate so that in the future we might be able to help others in the best way so that we might achieve awakening as quickly as possible. When we do that sincerely and well, then those good actions will definitely, it's like putting them in the bank. It is said that one moment of anger can destroy eons of positive merits and virtuous things we have done in the past. Just one moment of anger. But if we dedicate properly, it is a bit similar. Imagine you have, 10,000 rupees in your pocket. And then you go in the street and you run into a thief. The thief can take these 10,000 rupees. But if you had put them in the bank, the thief has nothing, to take away from you. So similarly, if we dedicate our merits properly, anger cannot destroy them. Then the second exception is that non-virtuous actions we engage in, negative karmas, we can also purify them. For example, last Tuesday, we engaged in the practice of the 4 opponent powers with Vajrasattva. So this is one example of the ways we can actually purify the negative karmas we have accumulated in the past. So I've been talking a lot, and I wonder if any of you would like to share something. Also online, feel free to interact. I will give you the possibility to unmute as well. Any thoughts on what we just discussed, or if you want to add things, or feel free to, let's make this interactive. Yes, if you can just take this microphone so that people online can also hear you.
This might sound stupid, but then you said that non-virtuous actions, they lead to unpleasant experiences, and this is not just within this lifetime but over thousands and thousands of life. It just feels unfair, right? Because at least as a human being right now, I have limited vision and I see people commit all sorts of non-virtuous actions, and it just doesn't seem fair, and it somehow motivates me to just let go and do whatever I can, because there's no accountability, at least within the limited time.
Right, yeah.
It's hard to get my head around that.
Yeah, that's an interesting thought. When we look around us and we see a situation where there is a victim and a perpetrator, we always have compassion for the victim. So, oh, poor person or poor animal is being abused or being treated poorly, but we never think about the person who is actually committing the harm. If we contemplate the law of karma, so the person who's being abused, of course, it is amazing to generate compassion for that person. We don't want others to suffer. But if we look, actually, that person has exhausted the cause to experience that suffering. Will not, in the past, that person has created the cause to experience that suffering. Now that cause is gone. It doesn't mean that person will never experience suffering again. There might be many other negative karmas that were accumulated in the past. But now, when we look at the person who's doing the harm, generally we don't feel compassion at all for that person, or the contrary. But if we look, that person is accumulating a new cause for that person to suffer in the future. So we should also equally have compassion for that person who will suffer in the future. Does that make sense? It's difficult, right? Yeah. I think online some people are using the chat, but feel free to unmute yourself so that we can also hear you. Feel free to interact and hear. Anybody else would like to share something, would like to say something? Yes.
I just want to say, does it not take away from the accountability of the person, from the perpetrator's accountability? If someone is doing something bad, I could just go and say, oh, my karma. I think that's not fair.
What do you mean?
I mean, if something bad happens to a person and the accountability, we shift it. If we are going through to the philosophy of karmic, a karmic table, we have both of these weights, and if something bad happens to a person, I cannot tell them, okay, this happened to you because your weights aren't balanced properly. I don't know if I'm able to come off.
Yes. It's not the way we usually interact with people. No? When we see someone suffering, we are not going to go and say it's your fault.
Yes.
Can you pass the mic? Can you pass the mic? So
Yeah,
because otherwise
sure,
online
sure,
people
sure.
cannot hear you. Yeah.
I was just saying that in modern parlance, it would be called victim blaming,
Blaming the victim.
But I just want to have like a move in a different direction and talk about emotions and how the Buddha saw emotions, and especially negative emotions. The emotion of anger. Anger can be about anything, and as humans, we want to control our emotions. But also, emotions, and especially anger, can also be such a huge motive to bring about a positive change as well. When you're angry, it basically means that you're not happy with the way it happened and you don't have control over it to change it. But that can also trigger in you a bigger motivation to change those circumstances. I was wondering, how does in Buddhist philosophy, to harness anger to be able to bring about a positive change, how does Buddhist philosophy sees that?
Keep the mic
I'll
so
keep
that we
it
can
going,
pass
yeah.
it on. So, yeah, in general, when we talk about disturbing emotions or afflictions or delusions, and anger is one of them, but we have plenty, It is said that the Buddha has taught about 84,000 of these. So anger is the grossest one, the most obvious, the most evident one. When someone is angry, we see it immediately, and when we are angry, it's like our blood is boiling and we want to destroy. And so all of these afflictions, how they are defined is that they take away our peace of mind, basically. So they are disturbing us. They are disturbing emotions. Now, it doesn't mean that, for example, there are many people, demonstrating in the streets these days to protect the street dogs. So it doesn't mean that, if you also consider that, street dogs should not be taken like that and let, we don't know where and in what conditions and so forth, it doesn't mean that we should not demonstrate, but the emotion that leads to, doing something. Anger will take away your peace of mind, and perhaps, yes, it will push you to demonstrate and take actions to help in that regard. But it could also come from a place that doesn't disturb your mind, just a compassion for the dogs. Or just using logic and reasoning in your mind without getting angry that this is not a solution, So therefore, I want to speak up and I want to, let the authorities know that this is not proper way, but there's no need to be angry to do that, right? In the short term, anger will make you suffer because it will disturb your mind. And yeah, I remember the first time I heard about anger, it was from, in the context of the Buddhist teachings, it was from an Australian monk who said, the next time you get angry, look at yourself in the mirror. And I think this is a very powerful antidote against anger, because when we are angry, we are so tense, and the way we apprehend reality is so, it's actually not tallying with, it's not matching with reality at all. We are exaggerating all the, the bad aspects, and we are so tense. But then if we look at our face in the mirror, we see that when we are angry, we actually look very bad because everything is ugly, basically. So if we do that, if we see our face when we are angry, perhaps, it makes us think that we don't want to get angry again in the future.
Because in my head, anger is the opposite of compassion, for example, or love and hate, for example. And as much as hate can inspire action or lead to an action which is negative, on the other hand, love can also inspire action that, brings two people closer, for example, and to be able to, harness that, because without emotions, humans would not be able to live. We are, at the end of the day, emotional beings, and love and hate, or anger or frustrations are these are two sides of the same coin, and without this we will not be function. And it goes the same for religion as well. People have done wonderful things in the name of religion, and they've done horrible things in the name of religion. It's just that between these two binaries, what we choose to motivate ourselves, or the way we react. We see a pothole on the street and we say, we curse, the authorities or the administration, but at the same time, it can also trigger a response which says that, we need to take action, let us build a coalition, demand our rights, and so on and so forth. So I'm just wondering that, emotions, whether Buddhist philosophy says that it should not be there, because without emotions we would not be able to live, but then emotions are there, and then it make us do good things or bad things. And how does that classification works? What is good and bad in the first place?
The pothole, you can let the authorities know that it's not okay and that they need to do something without getting angry, right? What would anger help? How would anger help in that situation? You can do that just with logic and reasoning, no? This pothole is a danger for the security of people on the roads. I will let the authorities know. I don't have to be angry for that. No,
which is what I said, hard to harness anger to bring about a positive change,
But you don't need anger for that, to bring that positive change, right?
But then emotions are the one that trigger the strong action. If you don't have emotions and we think rationally all the time, then it's like flat, but emotions are, up and down. It's like waves. And emotions are the ones that trigger strong actions. They are the ones that triggers negative to positive or positive to negative. What I'm trying to say is that, to be able, emotions are natural to human beings, and without emotions, it's a very normal state of being. But it's just like negative or positive. You will not be able to witness happiness if you don't have sorrows in life. That happiness would not feel that blissful if you don't have sorrows in life. And same, if you don't have anger, you wouldn't have the opposite of that as well, and same goes for. So these binaries, I think, are important as well, but I think it's how we react to those emotions is what is important. That's my 2 cents. Sorry if anyone else wants to. I'm the only one speaking, so.
Yeah, we have someone who comes here a lot and who also thinks like that, but it's very different from what the Buddha thought, actually. For the Buddha, emotions, negative emotions, such as anger, jealousy, pride, they don't bring about anything positive, only they make us suffer and they lead us to engage in negative actions. So we want to abandon these. I think it's an interesting modern way of thinking that we need anger, we need jealousy, we need pride, and we need, of course, to experience pleasure, we need to know the opposite of pleasure, but that is not a problem. We have been experiencing the opposite of pleasure since beginningless time. But it doesn't mean that the opposite of pleasure cannot be eliminated, that pain and misery cannot be abandoned. Just food for thought. Anybody would like to share about that? Your thoughts on that? It's not really about karma. Many people are using the chat online. Please don't use the chat. Please, click on the bottom left to unmute and interact with us, so everybody can hear you. Anybody would like to react or share more thoughts about karma, the law of cause and effect? I'm not going to read the chat. There are like 6 messages on the chat. If you'd like, please unmute yourself and share it with everyone.
Hello.
Yes.
This anger, I feel, is like fire. You can control it and use it for positive action.
Can you hear at
Yeah.
the back?
Can you hear?
Can you hear?
Yeah. Can you
Anger
hear me?
like fire.
Yeah. So it needs to be used in a very controlled and focused manner. I mean, in Hindu mythology, Lord Shiva he used anger only when necessary to protect dharma. So
Okay.
I don't know what it is in Buddhism, but anger is not something that should be left out of control. It should be controlled.
So
Out of control, you lead to destruction.
right. So yeah, in Buddhism, we would say that anger is not something we can control. It is a disturbing emotion that would kind of take over. It's like, at the beginning when we meditated, it's like our mind is using us instead of us controlling our mind. So similarly, when anger happens, then it leads to actions that are a bit out of our control. Perhaps we will say something that hurts someone and then we'll regret that and so forth. But to come to your point, in Buddhism, we also talk about wrath. And for example, it is not, you can imagine a mother with her child, and the child is on we are like crossing. Can you imagine crossing this big street here? And the child doesn't look for cars and just, so there the mother, out of compassion, she has to react fast, no? But she's not going to be angry at the child. She's not going to be angry at the cars. But out of love for her child, she will perhaps shout at the kid, like, stop, come back. But she will not be angry at the kid. She will use her wrath. She will be wrathful so that, she can save the kid.
Soul of awareness.
Yeah.
Can you use the mic? Or Kin, would you like to add something?
Sorry.
Online?
Sorry. Actually, anger is an emotion. In martial arts, we are taught like we have to protect ourselves. So sometimes when you're in a situation where there are many people who can harm you, you need to have a little amount of anger to fight against. I mean, otherwise you won't be able to react in the appropriate manner. You're too docile, too timid. So in those cases, if you want to act, you have to have anger. So as a protector, as you were
Yeah,
saying for the
I
mother.
understand what you mean. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, yeah, it's a little bit different from the subject of karma, but let us explore. When we talk about the emotions or the thoughts or the Actually, in Buddhist psychology, they are divided into two: the virtuous and the non-virtuous one. And anger, even in small amounts or in a controlled way, is necessarily non-virtuous, because what anger does is that it exaggerates the, for example, if you're in a fight with someone, let's say with your partner, and you get angry. So what anger does is that it exaggerates the situation. It exaggerates what you see in your partner that is not right. It exaggerates the bad qualities of your partner. So it is not in touch with reality because it exaggerates those. But also it takes away your peace of mind. Anger controls you. We are not controlling that anger. Even in small quantities, it takes over our peace of mind, our stillness. But then there are emotions like wrathfulness that can indeed be helpful, and that can help us to protect ourselves, protect others, and react in some situations to help others as well. Yeah.
When His Holiness gave a talk about when anger is not negative, everything that you said is 100% correct in my understanding, but it is all predicated on a strongly ego-based reaction. So I think what His Holiness may have been talking, as I vaguely remember the talk, is that the kind of anger that is not, it's a question of the terms. I mean, how we use the word anger. So when we assume that anger is this ego-based negative klesha, then that's true. But he was more subtle in saying that the feeling of anger that does not come from ego, that of the genuine caring for the street dogs or whatever, and so that it is a positive thing. So if you're angry about humanity, about rights, about Tibet, about the way someone is treating, whatever it is, I think that he framed it in a very nuanced way, that it's not that same anger from klesha, but it's an anger from righteous logic. And so again, maybe if we knew Tibetan, we would have better words
Yeah.
to describe that kind of anger that is non-negative.
Yeah. So what happens is that this was probably a public talk with a very large audience, no? So His Holiness, when it comes to giving to thousands of people, a talk to thousands of people, will not go into the definitions and the precise use of the words so that everybody can understand what His Holiness is talking about. But from what you're saying, what I hear is that His Holiness was talking about a negative anger, and then about wrath that can be helpful. Yes, that is helpful in the case of the child crossing the street, for example. This is very helpful, or the dogs, or whatever injustice. Then wrath can be helpful, but it doesn't disturb our peace of mind. Klesha, by definition, or klesh, by definition, they disturb our peace of mind. And anger is like the number one klesh, the most obvious, the grossest. It's so gross that it's on the path towards awakening, is the one we eliminate the first, because it's the biggest negative emotion, like disturbing emotion that we can have.
Also because it may cloud our judgment,
Yes,
our
definitely.
rational thinking.
Definitely. Any more thoughts on karma? Apurva, yes?
Thank you. So I've just been thinking about what both of you said, because I've had, sort of similar thoughts while studying the concept of karma initially, as to how, first off, the timeline is so large of karma at times that it feels almost unfair or just like out of our reach, or for somebody to see the fruit of their labor, or for somebody to really learn a lesson, it can take multiple lifetimes, which seems almost too convenient as a concept initially. I think that problem sort of gets a little bit easier to come to terms with once the idea of continuity of life and the idea of the same mind stream continuing over lifetimes. I think the more conviction we're able to sort of generate in that regard, that problem seems slightly smaller in comparison. I mean, at least that's just in my experience. One I was able to meditate on things like continuity of life to lifetime, and just to be able to really see your own life as multiple lifetimes as opposed to just this one blip. That sort of becomes slightly easier to palate. That's one part of it. But also I think because of the fact that it's so many multiple lifetimes and we have no sort of real control over it, or we don't have that clear vision, at least not as ordinary beings, we don't have that kind of vision to see that. That's also almost what makes it more definite, I feel, in a way, that the fact that it's not really there to show anybody any particular side, or to just, it's not satisfying anybody. It's not a very it's not the kind of karma that you can see and you can feel and touch, and it's not as concrete. Because of that, I think it sort of holds almost a little more weight than the things that we would see and place our belief on. That's just one aspect of it. And also what you were saying about how it's very difficult to explain to somebody who's already gone through hardship or suffering, and then to be like, we can't necessarily tell them that it's your karma. Or it's the same thing goes for even people who've achieved great things in life, and we can't just be like undermine all their effort and be like, it's your karma. That doesn't, as Buddhists, it's not sort of
It's not helping.
encouraged, and
Yeah.
it's not happening. And that's also one of the things that I think one of our teachers said, I can't remember who, or maybe I read, is that how the concepts of karma should first and foremost be only applied to oneself, as opposed to using the concepts of karma to compare other people's actions, or to victim blame, or to glorify the perpetrator, or to necessarily just basically using that as a logic to function in the world, and to basically rate and rank people. That it kind of is like a self-defeating concept, and that just kills the concept of karma in the first place. The idea would be to just be able to apply it to one's own life at first, and then eventually the goal is for people to maybe meet the teachings, maybe understand the concept better, so that later on, when, for instance, I have a major hardship in my life, I don't necessarily need somebody else to come and tell me, oh, it's your karma. It's that thought process that would naturally arise in me if I have had the good fortune of meeting the teachings, the teachers, of understanding the karma. That, I think, again sort of bridges the gap in terms of understanding. But both such valid, important questions around karma, I felt, because even I struggled with the same thoughts. Absolutely. Yeah. Share this.
That's very helpful. Thank you. Yeah. Keep it in case.
Okay.
Yeah. Sometimes, when we are angry at someone who did something wrong, we tell to that person, karma will punish you, out of anger. We say that. So that's illustration of something that doesn't help at all.
I think the point that she made is pretty relevant.
The mic.
The latter point that you made. It's pretty relevant because when you say that, the karma applies to you, or, judging someone for that matter, we don't know what they've been through. We only know what we've been through. And therefore the holistic knowledge to understand why something happened, that knowledge we only possess about ourselves and not about anyone else. So if we, as in German they call it Schadenfreude, which is the happiness at the misery of someone else. When you are experiencing that, you're only judging that person for that particular span of time. You don't know what they have been through or what they've done in the past. So that knowledge that you're judging them on is very incomplete. The only complete knowledge that you have is about yourself, and therefore the point that she made, that you should judge yourself, perhaps through the lens of karma. And also karma is not only, I think in Buddhist and in Hindu philosophy, I think they also differ in many ways. Because in Hinduism, it's also about, karma is just action. It's, it's in the purest form. The consequences is where you bring in the laws of karma, and you say that, the consequences that you suffered or you faced or you experienced are what you did in the past or what I did in the past. But karma can also just be action. And I think what the cause of a lot of suffering, if not most of the suffering, is also when we don't understand the consequences of our actions, or even if we do or we think that we do, we're not able to fully decipher what sort of consequences they will bring. And therefore it's, in that sense, our error of judgment. Experience obviously enhances that that understanding, and therefore makes you wiser. But at the end of the day, the understanding, the actual understanding of karma is the understanding of consequences, and to be able to predict correctly, rightly, the consequences of your actions.
Yeah, literally in Sanskrit, karma means action, right? Yes. And then we experience the results of these actions, yes, in the future. Anybody else? Yes?
One small question. I think you did mention that. What's the best way to deal with suffering? So you said awareness. What's the best way to deal with suffering?
Okay.
So one awareness that, your suffering is coming from your non-virtuous actions committed in the past. But what else?
You have an example of suffering?
I know I am suffering, not right now, but say, I am aware when I am suffering, but I'm not trying to get rid of that feeling, but then it's just so uncomfortable. I want to do my best to be with it. And also because you said that only being aware of it can resolve the past karmas. If you're not aware of it, it just stays or something.
Oh, no. So whatever unpleasant experience that we have, whatever experience of suffering that we have, is due to an action we have engaged in the past, a negative action. If in the case of unpleasant sensation or pleasant experience of suffering is due to a non-virtuous action we have accumulated in the past, a negative karma. But you don't have to be aware of that. The moment you experience the pain, which is the result of the karma you have accumulated in the past, that action you have engaged in the past is exhausted. That particular action will not again give rise to such a result. But the thing is that in the past we have engaged in countless. There's something I didn't say at the beginning the first session when we looked at the mind, is that also the mind is beginningless and endless. This is also something very difficult to grasp at for our modern thinking. So in countless past lives, since time immemorial, we have engaged in countless actions, countless virtuous and countless non-virtuous actions. But the good thing is that we can purify all the negative actions, and we can dedicate all the virtuous actions towards our awakening to be able to help others.
Does doing more virtuous actions nullify the effect of the non-virtuous I've done?
We can purify them.
Okay.
Of course, it's always better to have more positive actions in our bank, but inevitably when the conditions come together, the negative actions we have done in the past, they will also ripen in the form of unpleasant experiences. But we can purify them. You came last Tuesday, right? So when we do such practices like we did last Tuesday, Vajrasattva, on the basis of the 4 opponent powers, which are the 4 direct opposite actions of the accumulation of a negative karma, then we can purify those, that they will not give rise to suffering in the future. But then your first question, yes, owning our karma, meaning when we experience an unpleasant sensation, thinking that it is the result of what we have accumulated in the past already helps. Because if somebody hurts us, and we just get angry and we want to retaliate, this doesn't help. This will create more negative karmas, will disturb our peace of mind, and so forth. Now, when it comes to helping with suffering, the Buddha gave so many different tools, and it depends what kind of suffering you're experiencing. So in general, there's nothing that comes to mind like as a general tool that I can give you, but in different experiences of suffering that we can have in life, the Buddha gives so many different tools that we can use to alleviate those sufferings. Yes.
So how would you define somebody's journey who's been suffering from childhood to the youth and still not able to understand where did the karma go wrong? And maybe it is my previous life or whichever is life. How would you define that person's journey? Because suffering has been going on for a very, very long time, like good 20, 30 years. How should that person navigate in that context?
The moment when we die, whatever is happening in our mind, for example, if I were to die right now, most probably I will have some fear. I'm dying, I'm losing this body, my possessions, this and that, I'm going to be separated from this. Some fear will come. I'm dying, what's happening? I'm not familiar with this process of dying because I don't remember from previous lives how it is. And this fear and perhaps this attachment. Oh no, my body, I'm attached to my body. It's like my mind and my body are separating, and I'm scared and I'm attached to that body. So it's not a very positive way of thinking, no. So whatever happens in the mind at the moment of dying will trigger a karma that was accumulated in the past and will propel us into the next life. So when we have negative thoughts or uncontrolled thoughts, such as attachment or fear at the moment of dying, most likely what happens is that a negative karma that was accumulated in the past is triggered and propels us into a life that usually is mostly unpleasant and mostly in the lower realms, such as the animal realm, the predator realm, and so forth. That being said, there is the propelling karma, the main karma that will define our rebirth, but then you have different kinds of completing karmas that will define our environment, the kind of experiences that we'll have, the kind of tendencies that we'll have. Somebody who, I don't know, has spent lifetimes and lifetimes lying and cheating, today is reborn as a human, probably will have a tendency to lie and cheat and deceive others again. Does that answer your question?
I'd like to make one comment about suffering. First of all, I'm very sorry for the participant who is constantly suffering. But as you say, there are many answers in Buddhism about suffering, and there's many kinds of suffering, and of course, suffering of suffering. But many, many years ago, someone following the Dharma explained to me that pain is real, suffering is a choice. And since that time, for many things that I might feel pain is a message, pain is telling you things, pain is real, but in many situations I find that I choose not to suffer from that pain. And I have a very dear friend who recently passed, who had terrible pain all of her life from rheumatoid arthritis, but was a very spiritual person. And she had a lot of pain for many, many decades, and pain also in personal relations. But she chose not to suffer because of her spiritual consciousness of trying to do that. So I can't presume to take away anybody's suffering by just the concept, but it can be helpful to try to shift the inevitability of suffering from the pain that you have.
Hmm. Sharon, was that person Elia you were talking about with the rheumatoid arthritis?
The friend who passed away was Kamalini Dutt.
Sorry?
Oh, the friend
Yes.
who told me that was Tom Traben,
Okay.
1973. He had come to India to do his master's and study Buddhism.
Yeah, that's why, owning one's karma instead of, you can even be happy, like advanced yogis, advanced practitioners, when something negative happens to them, some unpleasant experience happens to them, they're actually happy that that karma is exhausted. Then there are stories, you can imagine in Tibet when China invaded in the 50s, you can imagine some monastics being put in jail. And some of them, instead of just experiencing the pain and the suffering and lamenting themselves, they would just change their perspective. Instead of thinking, I'm in a prison, they would think, I'm in a cave, and I'm here to do meditation. So they could use that. They could use that experience in a good way instead of just lamenting themselves and experiencing that suffering. Yeah.
This technique is also being used by a lot of psychologists these days to treat light depression, not clinical depression, which is different, but light depression. The self-talk that we give to ourselves and how we interpret things is, that has a huge bearing on how we see pleasure or suffering.
Recently, there was this very tragic event that gave me a lot of food for thought when it comes to karma. At this flight from Ahmedabad to London that crashed, there was one survivor, and it's like, how can you explain that if it's not for karma? I mean, how could one person survive in such a crash? For me, the only thing that makes sense is that that particular person at that particular time didn't have the karma to die yet. I don't know if that makes sense. Okay, so what I suggest we do now is we go into the analytical meditation. And then if we want to share more, especially about the meditation, then we again have a time where we can exchange. Would you mind just pressing, there is one button so that it's
one?
like on mute. I think it's the top button. Yeah, that one. So again, we can find a comfortable posture, a posture that is suitable for meditation. If you're on the chairs and you would like to sit on the floor, feel free to grab a cushion and come here if you prefer to meditate on the floor. Yeah, there's some space over there, some space here. It's very difficult for us to know, how many people will come on a Monday, how many cushions we need to prepare before the session. Yeah, there is plenty of space here. Okay. Is everybody comfortable? So we can again come back to the body, come back to the breath, sitting comfortably but with the body upright, taking 3 deep and slow breaths. Trying to refresh our attention and trying to relax. In this guided meditation, we will look at the instructions that the Buddha gave on how to overcome our suffering, how to overcome our dissatisfaction. We want to make sure that we make use of what the Buddha taught in order to discover what is causing our own and others' suffering, and how we can create our own and others' happiness by creating its causes. So when it comes to happiness and suffering, one of the first instructions the Buddha gave is to learn about cause and effect, to understand our actions and the effects that they bring. Let us reflect for a moment that the word karma, simply means action in Sanskrit. And it refers primarily to actions of body and speech that we do with a specific intention. Whatever action we do with a specific intention, whether with our body or speech, that action leaves a certain imprint on our mind stream. It leaves a certain kind of potential. And that imprint, that potential, influences what we experience in the future. Every experience that we have, good, bad experiences, they come from our own karma, our own past actions. For a moment, let us contemplate, let us meditate that every moment of our life, we are experiencing the results of the actions we have done in the past. you can contemplate that every single aspect of your present experience right now, your present state of mind, your body, your personality, as well as the environment that you find yourself in, all of that is not here by chance. It comes from causes and conditions. Your own past actions. Let us familiarize ourselves with that thought for a moment, if that makes sense to us. So every experience, not only our internal experiences, but also the way we experience the outside world, the way we experience other people, friends, enemies, strangers, different situations with them, problems, arguments, difficulties. All these experiences are not coming solely from the outside, but our experience of them is influenced by our own mind. And our own mind is habituated by our own past actions. All of these events in our lives are results from past karma. Now take a moment to look at your own life and see if you can work with this logic, applying this to your own experiences in your life, whether positive or negative experiences that you are having, that you have had in the past, that you're having right now. You can think of the circumstances of your life, or a recent argument that you had with someone, or a recent gift or compliment that you received that made you feel good. And then, having looked at this, the most crucial point now is whatever circumstances happen, the way we respond to all these events in our lives, the way we react to them, that in turn is creating a new cause, a new karmic potential for what we will experience in the future. Does that make sense? Just linger on this point. The way how I react to what happens in my life, whether with delusion, disturbing emotion, or with kindness and wisdom, that creates my future experience, my own actions, how I respond to things, creates, designs my future. Having this understanding is key to create whatever future results you may wish to experience. Whether it is the achievement of temporal happiness, like wealth or higher status or beauty and so on, or the achievement of spiritual attainments, like liberation, nirvana, or full awakening, Buddhahood, so that you can also help others. All of that will be gained only by knowing the correct causes for its production, by understanding karma. By knowing the causes of suffering, excessive desire, jealousy, confusion, anger. By knowing the causes of suffering, we can eliminate the causes. And by knowing the causes of happiness, such as generosity, kindness, patience, or even the wisdom that realizes emptiness, by knowing these causes, we can cultivate them. For a moment, in order to conclude this meditation, try to place your mind on that understanding. The understanding that your own future lies within your present hands. Your future solely depends on how you act in the present. And if you know how to create positive karma and avoid negative karma. we can gently come out of the meditation. Any feedback or anything you would like to share about the meditation or about karma, new thoughts that came, or can you pass the mic? And I think you need to unmute it first. Press the same button again.
Despite trying too hard to come back to my breath and then go along with what you were talking, I think I was in my own dream-like state. And I do feel bad.
Yeah, this happens. Maybe Monday evening is not the best time now to meditate. Yeah. Usually I think it's more conducive to meditate in the morning, but organizing morning meditations in Delhi, I think is a little bit challenging. Yeah. Those kind of meditations, if you go to like Dharamshala or Bodh Gaya, happen in the morning, or even if you go to Kathmandu, to our monasteries and temples there. In Dharamshala, in Tushita Dharamshala, in above Maklotganj. Yeah.
I have a quick suggestion.
And yeah, if you would like to still do this meditation, it is also recorded. You can find it on our YouTube channel, Tushita Delhi. Yeah. If you would like to pay more attention to it one morning or something. Yes, please.
My quick suggestion is that when we do these sessions on a particular topic, if you have any reading or other resources on YouTube, for example, maybe you could suggest those. So we could listen to that and have like an initiation into the topic so that we can discuss it. We can contemplate it on ourselves, and when we gather here, we are in a better position to discuss those topics.
Oh, can you pass the mic again, please?
Many times after meditations, you're very stimulated to the outer world.
Stimulated to?
To the outer world,
Okay.
to light, to sound,
Okay.
to messages, to everything around. And it somehow unknowingly triggers you continuously. How do you manage or navigate with that?
Did you say during or after meditation?
After.
After meditation.
Because your senses are really like, you're vulnerable, and after that I feel for myself many times.
Yeah, I think you came a little bit late, no? In the beginning, when we did the placement meditation, the calm abiding meditation, one of the points I was emphasizing is to keep the eyes slightly opened, but not to pay attention to what appears in front of our eyes, because it is the mental consciousness that meditates. So when we train ourselves in doing that, meditating with eyes not closed but slightly open or even totally open, we kind of learn. We can learn how to kind of segregate between the different consciousnesses. And so even though something appears in front of our eyes, we can make abstraction of that and concentrate on the mental consciousness if we are meditating on a mental object, right? So similarly, sounds, we can just acknowledge them as sounds without, putting too much emphasis on the loudness, on the type of sound it is, and focus on something else, even after meditation. If we live in a noisy neighborhood, for example, if we don't learn to do that, we can become crazy, right? We can get angry all the time about the noise in the neighborhood. But I think it's difficult, but we can eventually just acknowledge sound as being a sound without adding anything onto that in our thoughts, without labeling this as a disturbing sound, a loud sound, a constant sound, just a sound. Then we can perhaps think of something else or do something else. Yeah. Of course, after a meditation, if we are in a very bright place, it's just like when we wake up in the morning, of course. Yeah, it hurts the eyes, no? Yeah. So we can gradually open the eyes. Yeah. Anything else? Or any thoughts on what was said? So of course, the best way to prepare for these sessions and the best material to read after those sessions would be the Lamrim Chenmo, the Great Stages of the Path, that was composed by Lama Tsongkhapa, but it's quite a lot of material and perhaps a bit overwhelming for people who have busy lives. So that's why in these sessions we try to keep it short and just take the essence. But yeah, I can think of shorter materials that could be shared before and or after sessions. Yeah, it's a good idea. But of course, the best would be this extensive literature on Lama Tsongkhapa.
Or even a lecture by...
Oh yeah, there are plenty. Yeah, plenty. Yeah. By His Holiness or many other Tibetan Lamas online. Yeah. Yes. Yeah. So thank you very much, everyone, for coming and for thinking about the law of karma and trying to regain control on our minds with concentration and explore the teachings of the Buddha together. Let us take a moment just to dedicate whatever good thoughts we had here, good intentions that we had, and our effort to come here and to meditate, our effort to contemplate on the teachings of the Buddha. Let us dedicate all that energy so that we may soon, very soon, achieve a state completely free from any kind of suffering. Not only free from suffering, but also a state of perfect, everlasting peace and happiness. And a state of perfect wisdom, in which we can also help others, guide others unmistakably towards that path. And may the precious minds that we have already developed, such as kindness, compassion, love, or the ultimate compassion, bodhicitta, the mind of awakening, as well as the wisdom that we might have accumulated, may that never decline but increase forevermore. And may our precious teachers, such as His Holiness the Dalai Lama, have long and healthy lives, so that they can continue to teach the Dharma of Buddha Shakyamuni, to continue to guide us, continue to help us and benefit the world. And finally, let us also dedicate whatever virtue we have accumulated so that the wars that are happening around the world immediately come to an end. May there be no new war. May there be no famine. May there be no epidemic. May there be no financial crisis. May there be no natural disasters, catastrophes of the elements. And may peace and happiness prevail in everybody's hearts and lives. Thank you very much, everybody, for joining tonight. And tomorrow we have another session, which will only be here in person. We are not going to do that online because it becomes a little bit difficult to organize, we will engage in the recitation of a sutra that is called the Golden Light Sutra, or the Sutra of Golden Light, which is really emphasized to do when there are, conflicts around the world, to pacify them, to help and pacify them. So we are doing this practice for world peace, basically. It's kind of our contribution to world peace to recite this sutra. So this will be tomorrow at 6:30 p.m. And if you can come, I'll explain more tomorrow. Then on Wednesday, we continue with our online debate classes, 6:30 p.m., only online. And then as usual, every day in the morning at 9 a.m., we have our morning meditations, 9 to 9:30. And again, if you cannot attend at that time, or if you are distracted at that time, all our sessions are recorded and you can find them on our YouTube channel. And finally, I would like to mention, if you haven't yet, we have these books that we recently printed from Lama Yeshe, who's the co-founder of Tushita and the whole Foundation of the Preservation of the Mahayana Tradition, about 130 centers, services and projects all around the world. So he co-founded this organization this is Lama Yeshe, with Lama Zopa Rinpoche. And through very kind students of Lama Yeshe, the teachings that he gave are, compiled and put into books that are printed and available for free distribution. And we have recently printed, these are 2 books in one, Becoming Your Own Therapist and Make Your Mind an Ocean. You can collect in the staircase. There is a cupboard with many of these books. Please feel free to take, and you can also take for your friends and families. And then if you donated, I think during summer, we made this online fundraising campaign to help, waterproofing this place, and also make a donation for the 90th birthday celebration of His Holiness Dalai Lama and the Long Life Buddhas that are organized at this occasion. If you contributed to that fundraiser, we also have other books that we would like to give to you. Feel free to approach Purbu or myself. Thank you so much. Have a good night. It's on Zoom and YouTube, like Zoom at 9, and then a few hours later it's also uploaded to YouTube. Yeah. Thank you.